Well, for more perspective on the tension between the police and the Black community in the United States, I'm joined now by Eric Broyles in Washington, D.C. He's an attorney and entrepreneur and the co-author of the book Encounters with the Police, A Black Man's Guide to Survival. So, Eric, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to read a list of names: Trayvon Martin, Freddie Gray, Alton Sterling, and Philando Castile, and I could go on and on and on. These are Black men who have lost their lives in the hands of some sort of law enforcement officer. Why do you think this keeps happening?
Well, I think there are a myriad of reasons that this occurs. I think you have a history in the U.S. that we can't ignore. You have skepticism and mistrust on both sides. A lot of African-American males have distrust of police, and a lot of police officers have distrust of African-American males, and it's one of the points I touch on in my book. So that underlies this, and there are other reasons as well.
Well, talk to me about that. Talk about some of the other reasons and part of the inspiration for writing this book, Encounters with Police, A Black Man's Guide to Survival.
Yeah, I wrote the book for a few reasons. Number one, it was really an attempt to sort of express my own frustration and anger at what appears to be just these senseless killings, unnecessary killings of African-American males, but to do it in a way that really takes into account all sides. My best friend and co-author of the book is Adrian Jackson. He's a 27-year veteran of a police department in Ohio. He just recently retired. So having the friendship that I have with him, I had to take into account the perspective from police as well. So the book is really about giving practical tips to African Americans, but really anyone can apply these tips on how to leave interaction with police safely. There's no fail-safe guarantee. One of the themes of the book is to comply now and contest later.
So let me jump in there, Eric, because we want people to understand the practicality of what you're telling them. So explain to me comply and contest, and if you could, let's say you're a Black man and a police officer pulls you over. What should you do? What are the practical things you're supposed to do?
The key thing is transparency and communication. So, for example, we urge African-American men and anyone to put their hands on the steering wheel so that they're visible, to ask the officer permission before you actually make any moves. So in the case of Philando Castile, actually ask the officer, is it okay for me to reach for my wallet? Now, I'm in no way justifying what the officer did in Mr. Castile's case. I think the officer was wrong from everything that I see. But the point is, over-communicate and be transparent. And then the contest part of this is to file written complaints. If you have a bad encounter with a law enforcement officer, file a written complaint. Write a letter to your mayor, engage in the political process, file a lawsuit. There are ways that you can document these instances so that it, one, helps the departments to potentially identify rogue and corrupt officers, because I think we overgeneralize the problem and paint all police officers with in a bad brush, and that's just not true. There are rogue officers, though, who should be identified and should be punished and removed from their positions, and the book talks about how to do that.
Eric, what do you say to people who would say, we're all supposed to be equal under the law, there shouldn't be a Black man's survival guide to dealing with the police?
Yeah, I totally agree with that sentiment. But as a practical matter, I think statistics and recent events show that these types of tips, this type of discussion is necessary in order to bring understanding. I think in some cases there is a understanding gap between police and citizens. What are police officers doing at the time of the stop? Why should you err on the side of being polite and respectful to police officers? Why, right? I talk about those things in the book. It's a shared responsibilities of the citizens and of police. Police departments bear responsibility in that they need to conduct better training, better hiring practices, mental evaluation, PTSD relief for these officers, and a myriad of other things that need to happen to help solve this problem.
Before I let you go, I'd really like to get a personal question in. You're a successful person, you're always on TV, you're talking about these issues, but when a cop pulls you over, Do you get nervous? What's going through your head?
Yes, I think it's human nature for any of us to get nervous when a law enforcement officer pulls you over. But one of the underlying themes of my book, okay, aside from the practical steps, is a theme of empathy, number one. And then there's also a theme of forgiveness. Because I operate in forgiveness, I don't tell myself stories about what this cop might do to me. The fact that, I think the Dallas shooter, this deranged young man who killed 5 officers, I think he was steeped in unforgiveness. I think he told himself stories about how bad cops are. They killed Michael Brown. They killed Tamir Rice. They killed Alton Sterling. And I think telling yourself that story without, having forgiveness leads to the type of hatred that you see that results in murder. So I try to leave open the possibility for a peaceful interaction. I do everything that I say in the book, and I typically have, in the past, have had encounters with no issues.
Thank you so much for your insight and for sharing some of these tips with us.
Thank you for having me.